Baltimore is under an extensive cyber attack. Hackers launching an aggressive virus called Robinhood and holding many government computers hostage. The assault causing police emails to go down, as did the Board of Elections. The Finance Department couldn't do business this week. Fax machines and printers were on the fritz.
We know that the teams are working hard, and we do know that they're not in control of certain parts of our system. It's really frustrating, and this could happen anywhere.
And it does. A new report shared exclusively with CNN by Recorded Future is one of the first to measure the scope of these kinds of attacks, showing that across the country, ransomware attacks are on the rise, crippling counties, cities, and towns, costing them millions of dollars. Since 2013, malicious foreign actors have been detected targeting local governments, law enforcement, and universities 169 times. 22 attacks alone this year. Figures, the group behind the new study says, which represent the tip of an iceberg.
The bad guys see state and local governments as a target that is willing to pay and that they may be able to get a lot of money out of. If nothing else, they may be able to get a lot of news coverage out of.
The attackers are not governments. This isn't about politics, but money, attacking targets big and small, often underfunded when it comes to cybersecurity.
They've got a bunch of really dedicated people, but they don't have the latest tools and equipment to protect themselves.
Eric Wyatt is one of those dedicated people. Last fall, he fought off a multi-pronged ransomware attack on his 100,000-person community north of Anchorage, Alaska.
They were so into our network that they brought down the vast majority of our workstations and servers. The type of attack that we saw was far worse than anything I have seen in my past. Being in this industry for over 35 years.
1,000 employees were affected. Old typewriters had to be dusted off. The ransom wasn't paid, but it cost $2.5 million to fix the problems, which still linger today, almost a year later.
We're outgunned. We don't have the resources to fight this fight. The people that are attacking us are better organized, better funded, and we don't have the same level of capability that they do. So they see us as a soft target. Often we are.
The FBI is among the first calls that victims make. They say attackers have moved from targeting individuals to larger prizes because it's more lucrative.
We're seeing larger and larger ransomware demands of these victims.
The problem, the FBI believes, is only getting worse.
People are paying the ransom and encouraging the behavior. So I think we will continue to see an escalation in sophistication of ransomware attacks.
The Trump administration, the Department of Justice, is suing Google today in what is the largest antitrust case against the tech company in more than 20 years. Our tech reporter Brian Fung has been following this. He's on the story this morning. I mean, this is the biggest really since Microsoft, right? What is the DOJ alleging here?
Yeah, it's the biggest antitrust case against a tech company in at least a generation here. What the DOJ is alleging is that Google controls 80% of the search market in the United States, and it's using its power to hurt rivals and damage competition. Now, DOJ's Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen said nothing is off the table in terms of what types of remedies the DOJ is seeking here, which could include a breakup of Google. And Google, for its part, says, and let me just read you a quick statement here that they just put out, that today's lawsuit by the Department of Justice is deeply flawed. People use Google because they choose to, not because they're forced to or because they can't find alternatives. We will have a full statement this morning. Now, obviously, this litigation comes days before a pivotal election in which tech companies, including Google, have been criticized for their role in affecting democracy. And this case could have dramatic implications, not just for Google, but also for the rest of the tech industry and the economy at large, and with downstream effects for our elections. So.
Brian, can I ask you, I interviewed Google CEO Sundar Pichai about a little over a year ago and asked him about reporting that this case may be coming, and his answer to me essentially was, we know there's scrutiny, we welcome the scrutiny. They're getting the scrutiny now. My question is, can they really force Google to break up? I mean, wouldn't that take many acts of Congress?
Well, remember that Congress doesn't have the power to break up Google. Only the courts do through antitrust law. But remember, this is going to be a years-long process where the Justice Department will engage in fact-finding and documentary evidence gathering for this court proceeding, and it could theoretically lead to a breakup of Google.
I would teach you how to think correctly. The largest gap between successful and unsuccessful people in life is the thinking gap. I'm not talking about being smart. I'm not talking about an IQ. I'm talking about how you think, how I think. Successful people think differently than unsuccessful people. Wise thinking leads to right living. Stupid thinking leads to wrong living. If you want to have a fulfilled life, you have to fill your mind correctly. Right now, you need to focus on today. And what I realized, so many leaders don't understand, is that truly today matters. And we overestimate what we could do tomorrow. We over-exaggerate what we did yesterday, but we underestimate what we can do right now. The only time you have, the only time I have, is now. So the question for all of us is, what am I doing with now? The great leaders, they're present in the moment, and because of that, they maximize the moment. So if you're tempted to take that faraway glance, well, glance, but get right back to the present moment. Because today, you're preparing to make tomorrow a success. Well, we all want to be motivated, and yet so many times we fail to find the secret of motivation, and so let me give it to you quickly. Just do it. Motivation is not the cause of action, it's the byproduct of action. There's a lot of difference. If I think motivation is the cause of my action, then I'm going to wait to be motivated before I do something. But if I realize it's the byproduct of my action, then I'll start doing something. And then guess what? Motivation will come up and zap you, and all of a sudden you feel good and you're glad you're doing it. And you're saying, wow, this is truly wonderful. So let it be the byproduct of your life. Don't let it be the foundation for the actions that you take in your life. Nothing comes to you until you commit yourself. Nothing comes to you if you're just going to try, but you're not committed. Nothing comes to you if you're just thinking about it. It's not until you take the action step. It's not until you take the direction do the things start to flow through you. But I'm saying don't cheat yourself out of the possibility of the potential that's on the other side of commitment. Stay with it long enough to find out if there's any fruit in it. You can do goal setting with a pencil, but you have to do goal getting with your legs. You got to take action. And it's the action that separates us. The greatest gap in this world is the gap between knowing and doing. Knowing is goal setting. Doing, now that's goal achieving. People that are knowledgeable about habits say that it takes 30 days for a habit to become a habit. Now, habits can be good, habits can be bad. So over a period of time, you can either be developing habits that are going to help you, or you can be developing habits that are going to hurt you. People that grow develop habits that help you. The great value of a good habit is you don't have to think about it. That's why it's a habit. In other words, once you begin to, over days and times and periods, begin to practice something that is good, after a while it becomes automatic to you. It becomes who you are. In fact, I always tell people, practice a good habit long enough to make it yours. And once it's yours, now it's automatic. Every day, you'll do what you should do. Often I have the expression that everything worthwhile is uphill. That's a fact. You've never heard someone talk about accidental achievements. You've never heard someone that got to the top of the mountain and somebody asked them, how did you get there? Kind of look confused and say, I have no idea. They know how they got there. The reason they know how they got there is because they had to walk all the way up the mountain. Nobody lifted them. There were no shortcuts. There's not an elevator. There's not an escalator. It's all effort that gets you to the top of the mountain. What I want you to understand is that inspiration does a lot better when it's coupled with perspiration. There are a whole lot of people, they want to be inspired in great things, but they don't want to do the hard work to achieve those great things. It's not either or, it's both and. So I really trust today that you will just kind of roll up your sleeves, look at something you haven't tackled for a while, dive in. You'll be amazed that once after you do the work, you get inspired. Don't wait to get inspired before you do the work.
I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did.
We are going to make it or break it based on whether we can provide products to higher education and services and relationships to higher education that no one else provides. And I think we ought to spend 100% of our time thinking about that. And if we can't do that, then we ought to go broke.
And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, and don't settle. So keep looking, don't settle.